Hello, EDCI 706, the Fayetteville cohort. It is Dr. Palermo on it's August 28th or so, recording my week 2 video and thinking ahead about Hall and Hoard and change and reform. And I sure hope that most of you are on the traditional calendar and started school last week. I hope that you've had a good start to your new school year. I know that taking care of your kiddos and taking care of business at school is mostly on your mind. I'm glad that you have a little bit of time to check in with me and check in on your graduate work as well. It is just a couple of weeks before I'm going to be together with you in Fayetteville. I'm going to take a little bit of a vacation Labor Day, but I will be checking in on you. And I'm thinking ahead and looking ahead to week 2 as I'm reading your week 1 discussion boards. And thank you for those of you who've already updated me on what you're doing and how things are going as you start the new school year. C&I in the news all the time. I'm reading the Governor Cooper vetoes Read to Achieve bill, calling the program a costly failure while you're doing a program evaluation. Again, if you're secondary, maybe this wouldn't mean so much to you, but the elementary folks know that M-Class and I-Station are a major controversy in the state right now. And implementation, Hall and Hoard want you to think about rolling out new initiatives like I-Station and how that happens. And implementation configuration maps are going to be one of our issues soon. How do you roll out a new change? How do you support a new change? How do you just cope with the change as things roll on over and over? Well, in week 2 of our, in week 2, you are to be reading Hall and Hoard, Chapter 2 about implementation interventions, 6 functions, and how those things work. But for those of you who are in elementary school, you have a very real example happening right now. The state, which had been using M-Class to assess the Read to Achieve criteria of having everybody ready to read by 3rd grade. M-Class was the reading assessment program that had been used by the state for several years, designed by NC State, I understand, but the folks at DPI threw it out and wanted to bring in I-Station. There's a lot of controversy in politics about that we won't get into right now, but again, you're in schools and elementary schools are told, okay, M-Class is out, you still have kids who need to be assessed in reading, now we're going to use this computer-based program, I-Station. Well, if you can think about the number of K-3 teachers statewide in public schools in the state of North Carolina, that's a lot of teachers who would be needing to use this new program. How are elementary administrators and curriculum leaders rolling out this new program? How is this intervention, a new assessment program, being rolled out in your schools? And how are folks reacting to it? Are they embracing it with open arms? Are they rejecting it and saying, I like M-Class, why are you kicking that out? Well, implementation change is all about Hall and Hoard, or those are the guys who are the big topic there. Hall and Hoard, Chapter 2. You're also to read Part 1 in the Graham and Ferreter book, Building a Professional Learning Community at Work. Perry Graham is a former principal in Wake County. William Ferreter, if you don't know, is still a teacher in Wake County at Salem Middle School. And yes, you too can write a book. Bill Ferreter did. Review your FCEP and PLCPA resource folders. So you're to read Hall and Hoard Chapter 2, read Perry Graham and Ferreter Part 1, review your FCEP and PLCP resource folders. That is over here on the left-hand toolbar. I'm not going to take you there, but I'm going to tell you that at least one of those links I noticed is broken, and I have notified Dr. Putnam of that fact, but this PLCA assessment, a PLCPA, this assessment, which is from the work of a researcher named Olivier. Here's a copy because the link is broken in the resources. So check out the resources, please, but there's an additional one for you. So you are to start 2 different projects this fall. Two new projects will be concluded this year, and it's a continuous improvement around PLCs and FCEPs. Well, going back to starting with Hall and Horde, how do you change a school? How do you implement change? How do you reform a school? Well, our answer, and actually the official public school, North Carolina Public School DPI answer to how do we improve schools is PLCs. So I'm going to give away the answer there. PLCs are the way that we practice evaluating data about teaching and learning and collaboration, and change practice through improving outcomes. That's the promise of PLCs, that if teachers collaborate, examine the curriculum, examine their instructional practices, examine the data from their assessments, we can make continuous improvements in schools. No matter where you are, no matter what your school situation is, PLCs working together to fix school-based problems is our solution. That is the Gardner-Webb School of Education C&I program. Our philosophy is PLCs are the answer. So make sure you know that. And most of you have professional learning communities in one way, shape, or form in your schools now. The whole idea of the PLC project is to try to improve them. How do we do that? Probably by doing a little bit of an assessment. And in your CNA and OA, you probably did assess the functioning of PLCs in your school. If not, there are lots of great tools here. I like the initial action survey for PLCs on page 24. It is a reproducible. If you think about traditional teacher teams and PLTs, how high functioning are the PLCs in your school? So I like page 24 for an initial action survey, but this PLCA revised, R means revised, I've got it in the wrong place. That's also a great tool for you to use to assess your PLC. I'll move it to the PLC folder. The FCEP, I want you to especially check out the PTA folder here, please. Okay. Wrong. In the FCEP folder, there is a link to the PTA standards. This is almost everything that you need to know about high-functioning community and parent involvement in your school. If you do nothing else but operate from the family school partnership standards, you've got it covered. Standards 1 through 6, welcoming, communicating, supporting, speaking for every child, sharing, power, and collaborating. Drill down into these standards. You will see assessments, you'll see best practices, you'll see lots of ways to improve school and community relations. Standard 2 is about communicating effectively. I noticed that Roz is real interested in improving communication at her building. Well, here are some ideas about assessing your current state of communication at your school, between home and school, and how you can improve it. So again, there are lots and lots of different resources here, but if you will go to that PTA standards, National Standards for Family School Partnerships, here in the PTA link in FCEP, that is a really good place to start, in my mind, for assessing and improving family and community engagement in your school. So Hall and Horde, Chapter 2. Part of your PEC is how to report the results of your program evaluation. Think about your program evaluation as a change effort. Who are you going to communicate those results to? Who is interested in knowing about your program and how it could be improved? Is that the superintendent? Is that the school board? Is it your school leadership team, a PTA team? Who are you going to communicate with, and how are you going to tell that story? Now again, back to chapter 2, there are 6, I can find it. There are 6 functions of interventions: developing, planning, investing, checking, providing, creating a supportive context for change. There's also about communicating externally on page 36. And that's the thought here, is to think about your PEC, and if that's a change effort, who are you communicating the change recommendations to? You do also need to keep clinical experience log. You've been doing that since September semester 1, and you'll continue to do that here in semester 3. Focus on the evidences that you are working on and tell how you're working at school to make those things happen. It's a met, not met thing that I will check along with your coach at the end of the semester. So week 2, get started on your FCEP, get started thinking about your PLCP, do read Hall and Hoard, do think about change efforts and how you might communicate your change in your PEC. That's all for me this week. I will be checking in with you. Call, write, or reach out if you'd like some more help. Thanks. Have a great week.